A mysterious blindness suddenly breaks out, plunging civilization into chaos. What exactly is happening? Let's find out together with Catnap Review. On a busy street, filled with cars and people bustling about, a crowd gathers around a corner. The camera zooms in on a car that has suddenly stopped. The driver rubs his eyes with both hands. His actions cause a traffic jam along the road, drawing the attention of passers-by. This driver is a Japanese man named Hirasuke. Bystanders learn that he wasn't doing anything unusual, but his vision suddenly became blurred. One of them offers to drive Hirasuke home. In the car, the Good Samaritan asks Hirasuke about his symptoms. It turns out that after going blind, instead of seeing darkness, Hirasuke sees a milky, blurry whiteness. Not long after, Hirasuke arrives home. When his wife returns and finds out about his blindness, she immediately takes him to the hospital. After conducting various tests, Dr. John is baffled. He's never encountered a case like this before. Medical equipment shows that Hirasuke's eyes are completely normal, with no signs of blindness. John advises him to wait for results at home while he consults with other ophthalmologists. On that same day, around the world, many others begin to suffer from the same condition as Hirasuke. This kind of widespread blindness has never been seen before. When these patients visit hospitals, doctors cannot determine a cause and don't initially take it seriously. However, after John returns home, he himself becomes blind the very next day. He tells his wife, Jenny, that Hirasuke likely passed the condition on to him. Jenny is skeptical and tries to comfort him. Meanwhile, the number of blindness cases around the world suddenly skyrockets. The government begins to quarantine those affected by blindness. Jenny watches as John is taken away in a quarantine vehicle, and she lies about being blind herself to stay by his side. At first, the quarantine facility only holds John and Jenny, and they remain somewhat optimistic. However, over time, Hirasuke and other patients John had treated arrive at the quarantine site. Among them, only Jenny can still see, so she helps everyone adjust to the environment inside the quarantine zone. In truth, Jenny is deeply afraid that she might go blind as well. She even avoids sleeping, fearing that she might wake up to darkness. As days go by, more blind individuals continue to arrive. Among them are those with injuries, and John attempts to seek help from the soldiers, but the soldiers ignore their pleas and even point guns at John. He and Jenny quickly retreat back inside, realizing that the blindness outbreak is even more terrifying than they had imagined. Aside from a small amount of food delivered daily, there are no other supplies. Jenny makes multiple calls, pleading for more food and urgent medical equipment, but there is no response. Soon, the number of people in the quarantine grows, and losing their vision makes everything more challenging. Jenny becomes like a nurse in the quarantine, but there are far too many blind individuals for her to manage alone. The conditions inside the quarantine facility worsen. One day, Jenny discovers an elderly man who had only one good eye, but he too has become blind. He carries a small radio, through which he learns about the situation outside and shares the news with the others in the quarantine. Within 24 hours, tens of thousands of people exhibit the same symptoms. No pain, just a blurry white fog obscuring their vision. Despite the government's decisive quarantine measures, the abandoned nursing home they chose is not suitable for containment. Day by day, world leaders hold numerous meetings. During one such meeting, a leader suddenly goes blind, causing even greater panic across the globe. The number of blind people continues to rise, disrupting communication and transportation networks. A news report even mentions a bus accident that resulted in 23 casualties, along with 2 plane crashes. Traffic accidents became frequent news, prompting people to stay home to avoid the spread of the illness, and only then did the traffic situation improve. The city now resembled a ghost town. The one-eyed old man holding a small radio played music, bringing a brief moment of calm to the anxious crowd. But the aftermath of the situation was far from the beautiful sounds of the music. More and more people were sent into the quarantine facility, and problems began to escalate. 3 individuals who resisted were shot by the guards. John suggested that each ward in the facility should designate a person to rotate and use a shovel for cleaning, but some people objected and refused to follow his guidance, even openly criticizing him. Jenny continued to take care of John's daily needs, which made John feel ashamed in front of everyone, creating a rift between them. Meanwhile, a bearded man from Ward 3 used the intercom system to announce that he had control over all the food supplies and that anyone who wanted food would have to trade money for it. With this, the bearded man monopolized the food supply being delivered, and somehow, he had obtained a gun, allowing him to dominate the entire quarantine facility. Jenny collected whatever valuables people had, and John went to trade them for food. However, they only received 2 boxes of supplies, which was not enough for everyone in John's ward. He attempted to argue again but was once more threatened by the bearded man with the gun. After the food ran out, only one of John's former patients stepped forward, offering him comfort. They developed a deep bond and ended up being intimate, but Jenny happened to witness this. She forgave them both. A week passed, and no one in the quarantine had anything left to trade for food. The bearded man made another announcement, stating that women would now have to be exchanged for food. Faced with the need to survive, the men reluctantly sent the women to trade for food. Groups of women were sent to Ward 3, where they were subjected to abuse by the bearded man and his followers. One of them was so brutal that he beat a woman to death. Jenny decided to avenge this woman. Being the only person who could still see, she took a surgical knife and found the bearded man, stabbing him in the neck while he was still reveling in his power. Afterwards, Jenny found her husband and instructed him to collect the food. Shortly after, the people in Ward 3 sought revenge against Jenny and the others, but, being blind themselves, they struggled with movement and even set fire to the quarantine facility, forcing everyone to evacuate to the courtyard. Jenny went to seek help from the guards. As soon as she opened the door, she realized the guards had long been gone. There was no one left to oversee them. Jenny then led everyone out, and they left the quarantine facility, scattering into small groups. The city was now deserted, a shadow of its former self. Everyone had succumbed to the blindness epidemic, turning into the blind, except for Jenny, who was still able to see. The entire city lay in ruins, filled with chaos. Jenny led John to a supermarket to scavenge for food, as supplies were now the most vital thing. Seeing the supermarket ransacked, she realized that, thanks to her vision, she could access the basement storage. She opened the door and found it stocked with supplies. But as soon as she brought out some food, others in the supermarket swarmed and fought to grab it. John heard the commotion and rushed over to help, and together they managed to escape the dangerous situation. Throughout the city, dogs scavenged the bodies of the starving, but one dog stood out. It didn't feed on humans. Instead, it stayed beside Jenny, offering her comfort. Suddenly, a rainstorm arrived. Everyone relished the rain, enjoying a wash after many days without, and they embraced each other in joy. Jenny then guided them back to her home, where they bathed, laughed, and for a moment, it seemed as if nothing had ever gone wrong. With Jenny's help, they all relished the warmth of a home they had not felt in a long time. Together, they raised their glasses and savored the joy of simply being alive. The next morning, when Jenny brought coffee to Hirosake, his sight had returned. He looked around at everything, and everyone embraced one another, celebrating joyfully like children. For the first time, they felt hope again, that they might regain their sight. At this moment, Jenny stepped outside alone. She imagined the entire city shouting, "I can see again." Jenny gazed up at the sky with a sense of relief, but all she could see was a vast, white emptiness, causing her heart to clench. She wondered if she, too, would go blind, but when she looked down and saw the city still before her, she finally felt reassured. It was just a momentary scare. And with that, the movie comes to an end. This film is titled Blindness. Here's a question for this episode. If the entire world went blind, do you think humanity would face extinction? Comment 1 if you believe we would go extinct, or 2 if you think we'd adapt to survive. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.